Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. People might tell you you're too much. You dream big. You have big ideas. And you might find yourself hearing from other people, you're too much. Maybe you tell yourself that phrase, but you can't help it. Can't help that you dream big. And you might find yourself overwhelmed a lot, trying to push through it. You might feel like every time you do something confident or really claim your space, someone tries to make you smaller. And at the end of the day, you're managing everything for everyone and maybe don't get a lot of time for yourself. On top of it, you might be seeing a little bit of a struggle underneath the surface just around self-worth, where you're showing up for everybody else and helping everyone else and don't feel like you're really getting the value or worth received on your end. Welcome to Leading with Spirit. This month, I'm going to take you around the ancient wheel. We're going to be walking around the wheel and the four directions and explore how knowing where you are on the wheel will help you tackle problems in your life and in your business. In each direction, I'll be sharing the gift and the wound you need to know so you can end the stuck pattern of the wound that's living through you and through your business and enter into the gift of that direction. This allows us to achieve sustainable growth in ourselves and also grow powerfully and sustainably in our business. On this episode, I'll be sharing how to spot the wound, what you need to do to heal it, and how it's going to show up in your business to teach you the difference between repeating a cycle or going to your next level of expansion. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the sacred wound and pattern of the North. Its gift is expansion, and its wound is self-worth. So if you resonated or struggle with any of the statements from the beginning of the show, get closer because I'm going to share with you what that's all about. Today, we'll be talking about support, rescuing, flexibility, and nourishment. Because of your gift of expansion, you're always going for more, bigger, better. The downside is if you don't know what is enough for you, if you don't know sort of the ceiling of what is enough in your expansion, you can never actually keep up with your own dreams. This is what has you feel like you aren't enough or don't deserve or question your worth. It might even become a game of needing others to sort of see your worth, hoping that then you'll feel like it's true for yourself, right? Like starting to seek evidence from the outside to demonstrate our own value to ourselves. And so what happens here is we keep manifesting people needing you because that's how you derive value instead of believing in your own self-worth just because you're a person, just because you're alive. And again, underneath all of this is this belief that you're not enough. So you try to fill that hole or that gap by giving to others and hoping it comes back or deriving value from their appreciation of you. But it just doesn't actually fill that gap or that hole over time. And it gets to where it's maybe not even helping the others around you. It might actually be making them dependent on you. Sometimes this also can look like doting on people. And a lot of us do this because we want to make people feel good, right? And we want them to feel inspired. We want them to feel the thing that we maybe don't feel. So we build them up with praise. And again, this is part of the wound of the North. You probably mean well. Of course you mean well. But unconsciously, what's happening is you're almost like suffocating the others in your own praise of them. And being in this place can be really frustrating on both ends. What happens for us when we're in that sacred wound of the north is we get caught in this pattern where we have to help everyone else first, and then you can take time for yourself. But this action, believing that things need to be settled or all taken care of before you can tend to yourself, though also thoughtful, is part of the pattern and part of the problem. Okay, that's great to know, right? And then, so how do we change it? And the two primary ways I would say are support and team. We'll start with the business, well, and in your life, you're going to want to keep running everything yourself. But your job is actually to set up a team or set up support and actually trust them. So that's the big piece, because it's one thing to even just ask for help and ask for support or bring in a team into your business. It's another thing to actually be able to give them the information they need to succeed in order to help you. Right. And so what happens in this pattern also is we bring in help. We subconsciously don't give them all the information that they need. And then in the end, they can't do the job that we've asked them to do. And so we have to swoop in and do it ourselves if we want anything to get done. So people get here when we're in that wound of the north and feel like they can't trust others because of this pattern, the thing that they keep seeing, that they can't, nobody else can kind of do the job that they need them to do, or can do it as well as us. And this happens because of two reasons. Again, one, it's either we didn't actually give them enough information so that they could do the job well. And usually that's not on purpose. Usually it's not, sabotaging them on purpose. Usually it's because because the story that we're too much, we might have really specific needs and we actually pretend that they're not there or try to bypass them or ignore them. So something that's actually really important to us, we don't communicate. And then when the people skip over that piece, we get upset because it was important to us, but they didn't know that, right? The other reason this pattern can happen is because when we're in that wound of the north, one of the things we're learning is how to have flexible thinking. So each direction has its own way of thinking, and we actually need all four of these ways of thinking to have balance in ourselves and balance in the world. And side note, with all of the directions that I'm going to be sharing about in the next few weeks, keeping in mind that we'll be traveling through each of these directions multiple times throughout our life. And we'll also probably have one direction that we tend to experience more because that's the main part of what we came here to learn. So in the north, your sense of knowing and drive has helped you stay successful. But also your sense of knowing that you are right or the right way to do things is also what keeps you trapped. And honestly, some of this can come through with your clients too. If you're practicing healing work or coaching work, and you're feeling like you're not quite seeing the success you would like to see in your clients, or you feel like your clients aren't quite getting the full result that you want them to see, and maybe you're actually starting to get a little annoyed with your clients. Maybe there's coming in really needy and you're feeling like they're not taking enough responsibility for themselves. And I know that's taboo to say, right? Because as healers, we're supposed to love everybody and self-sacrifice and, be compassionate. And also sometimes not letting people be needy is compassionate. Sometimes not swooping in to rescue people is compassionate, right? This is when we become conscious of the north, when we move from that wound to the conscious state. And so if we're finding this place where our clients are being kind of needy and not getting the results that we want them to see, it's probably because you're trying to do the work yourself instead of giving them what they need to do it themselves. Again, that can look like overpraising or trying to save people. And you can't tell people what they are. You can't praise them into actually believing in their own self-worth. Actually, what that does is it creates a gap of doubt instead. Saving people doesn't actually help them. It doesn't rescue them. It forces the belief that they need to be saved, that they need to be rescued. And side note, I've also seen this if we're getting into some of the spiritual work, because this pattern can manifest in, our families needing us, needing help all the time, having clients that seem to be overly needy, and also having repeating situations where we have to kind of rescue people. Like every time we get time for ourselves, then, somebody gets sick and we have to help them, or something happens and we need to come to the rescue. And this pattern can also happen in the spirit world. Like where you end up in a pattern of feeling like you have to rescue people from evil spirits. This is part of the sacred wound of the North, swooping in and rescuing. And so bottom line is you have to trust that they can get what they need. You can help them with the tools that they need to do it, but it's not your job to save them. You have to trust them. They don't need to be babied. Healing isn't feeling better or just feeling peace all the time. That's not what we're doing here. It's not the spa. My job is to give you the tools for you to show yourself that you are enough. So instead of giving others what you think they need to actually move through this wound, you have to give yourself what you need. That praise that you're really good at giving to other people, you need to give to yourself. And it's one thing to just think about it. It's one thing to just give yourself some thoughtful praise, right? The next step you need to do with it is actually allow it in. But the question is, for a lot of people here, this is where they stop. They get to the praise. They're kind of like, okay, well, that was all right. And then we try to let it in, but we actually block it because this underlying question comes up. And the question is, what if I do let in my self-praise and then I become ego-driven, over-the-top drama goddess queen? That is too much, right? Because that is what the unbalanced wound in the North looks like. But also when we block permission to give ourselves enough, to give ourselves that self-worth, to give ourselves praise and love, what ends up happening is it comes out sideways. So we end up presenting like we don't have it, but we do. We end up presenting like we don't have the ego, but we do, because we're not aware of how big it's become, because we're trying to push it away. The same is kind of true with self-nurture also. And this is true of the North. You are designed, you're made to nurture. So to be a good nurturer, you have to give it to yourself first. And again, here, you have to know what is enough for you. What is enough nurture? First, we have to give it ourselves any. And then we need to know what's enough. And this can also be tricky because let's go back to the gift of the North, which is expansion, right? And so we can get caught in a cycle where we want more and more and more and more. And it might feel like knowing where your enough is in self-nurturing might feel like it's limiting, which can be scary, especially when it comes to self-care and all of the things that we want. Or when it comes to the place of, we run into this in the coaching industry where it's like, know your value, charge your value, right? And so we kind of bypass this place of doing the inner work and we feel like we just deserve the best. Well, if I really am truly in touch with my value, then I deserve the best and things should just come without actually being able to give back, right? And so this might look like a lot of dreaming into growth and expansion, but it's actually causing the not enough feeling to get bigger. Yeah. So the other thing that you want to watch out for here in the wound of the North is for overworking without treating yourself, right? And again, you need to know where that enough is for you so that you can treat yourself, give yourself enough, and not have that always needing more causing you to never feel like you're actually getting nourished. And this is part of the balance of the North because you can be a hard worker. You are a hard worker. That's okay. Just actually nourish yourself too. and use the brilliance that you have and the drive that you have and the passion that you have to create strategy, not just bulldozing. And here it's also important to remember to be flexible. Your strategy, what you're knowing, what you think is going to happen, is also just a prototype. It's a perspective path to your vision, but at night might not unfold the way you actually expect it to. And you have to know that doesn't mean you messed it up or that someone else has messed it up for you. It just means the how of how you're getting to where you're going has changed. And that's part of the beauty and the mystery of life, right? It doesn't mean that it didn't work or you got it wrong or that you need to try harder. This is where that trust comes back to the trust and flexibility. So bottom line is how do you heal this pattern? Well, your job again is to continue to go inward and give yourself enough. The North has a gift for expansion. And if you keep following the grow forever and ever, you might create a situation that again is never enough. It's like you can't keep up with your own dream. Every time you're about to reach to where you're trying to go, you expand to where your goal is. And so it becomes this like chasing where you can never quite get there. And this causes you to go back and feel like you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, or people don't see you enough, right? This makes you move faster, push harder, drive more. But in order to keep up with your dream, you actually have to go slow. And for most of us, not even just if we're in the northern moon, but for most of us, we equate freedom with no limits. But that actually is illusion. It's not true. It's finding safety in limits, which is true freedom. When you can be safe in boundaries and limits, then you will finally be as big as you want to be and be it in a way that doesn't diminish others, in a way that feels like you are connected to your own worth. And I know you hear that. I know you hear you're too much, you're too loud. And probably sometimes you are. Sometimes especially when we're in the wound, sometimes we aren't leaving room for others. And sometimes it's others' perceptions of what you're doing, when actually what's happening is they are making themselves small, right? Sometimes we are taking up too much space or not leaving room for others. And sometimes it's others' perceptions of what and who we are. And their reaction is to make themselves small and then blame it on us, right? So you have to know the difference for yourself of when you're just being big and there's enough room for all of us, and when you're not actually leaving room for others because you're trying to prove your value, right? And so we want to flip this. So instead of trying to fill this whole space out of yourself, be your own self fully instead, right? That's the power that you're seeking. And you have to know what is enough and stop for a moment and let yourself feel safe there and feel worth there. It's from here you can actually grow. The astrologist Chani says the right boundaries give you maximum freedom. The right limits give you exponential room to grow. Again, this sums up the North so well, where its sacred gift is expansion and its wound is self-worth. And when we can give ourselves limits and allow ourselves to feel safe in those limitations, then we're actually able to get bigger and expand. And to sum this up, the way that the wound shows up in your life is overgiving or overextending. It thinks that endless expansion is freedom. And to heal that, you have to give yourself and your business teamwork and support. And at the same time, you have to give yourself your own sense of self-worth. Nobody else can give that to you. And then when this happens, this is where the magic happens. This is where our business does blast off. Because at heart, you are a nurturer. So when you can nurture yourself, you can nurture your business, and you can nurture your community with the big ideas that you do have. But you have to get out of your own way and teach others how to help you. And teach yourself that it's safe to do this. It's safe to have limits. It's how you get free. And remember that this is just one side of the wheel. So we all have this wound and we all have this learning so that we can grow ourselves and grow our business. And we'll all learn about this at some point in our lives. And some of us will learn about it a lot longer. So I hope you enjoyed me today. I'm excited to be sharing more around the wheel and the directions with you over the next 3 weeks. Please stay tuned for next week where we'll be looking at the very mystical East. Thanks for joining me today. Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about Shaman School and growing your spiritual business on our website, HoltonHealingArts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This question is from one of our Leading with Spirit private Facebook group members. And the question is, how do I grow my business while I'm working my other job in a way that I don't burn out or overwork? And that's a great question. And I actually, before I answer that, I want to start with something even before that question, which is a lot of times when we awaken or we learn some more things, we get this like call to jump forward and offer our services, offer our works, right? We get excited about what our vision is. And so we try to jump headfirst into it. And while I certainly admire the passion and excitement, it's really important to take our time in the movement so that we don't actually end up burning out or having a backfire or having to backtrack and undo a bunch of stuff we just did and start over again from the beginning. So I definitely encourage you, if you are feeling the pull to be sharing your work in a different way or to be replacing your regular job income with your spiritual business income, that it's certainly possible. It's actually not that challenging. I've helped a lot of people work through that. And also, one thing that they all have in common from the get-go is they're very, very clear about what it is that they want to do, why they want to do it, and they're really confident in their own ability to do it. So that's something to keep in mind. What happens a lot is that people see that they want to be the healer or want to create a spiritual business, and they start without having that foundation underneath them. And so this is what actually causes them to spin the wheels a lot, because they're offering stuff that's not really in alignment with their highest purpose or really in alignment with the specific unique gifts that they have. This can look like offering sort of like copy cutter healing work, or doing, ceremony work that doesn't bring in the specific gifts that you have. That being said, the next thing that's important to know or keep in mind is that if you don't actually have like a place or a cushion to make the leap, then there's a simple way to do this. And that's by starting to slowly build and replace your current income. And I recommend giving yourself a time frame and goals to do this. So if you want to leave your job right now, the best way to do that, the fastest way to do it, is to, one, invest in your own clarity and confidence and your own unique offer. And two, then start a structured way of slowly replacing that income. And so that's also something that I help you do in the Shaman School program, is once we have that clear offer and the confidence and the self-trust to do the spiritual work that you came here to do, then we can start working on a way that's appropriate for you, for how you want to market and what you want to sell. And this is where I encourage people to actually offer packages, not packages that are like 5 healing sessions for this much money, but packages that are aimed, again, at your specific unique gifts. We spoke with Jan last month, and she moved from doing the Reiki sessions to doing a whole program that helps people specifically release their anxiety, to get through their anxiety and be able to do the things that they came here to do. And Jan's able to use her gifts even more in this practice than she was before. She's able to actually bring in a lot more of her expertise, and then she's able to help people get through a very clear and defined problem that they're having. So that's one example of what a package could look like. and you just build from there. So it's important just to sit down and make some notes for yourself. How much time do you have available for you to work on your new business? So you'll need time for working on your business and time for actually being in your business, right? Actually delivering the work. And it's true, it's probably going to take a little bit of time initially. We can make really big leaps in a fast period of time if we have that good foundation. And most of the time, for most of us, we still are going to have some of the building business process. This is what helps us create a powerful, sustainable business that can replace our income and then can keep that income going for a long time after that. So having a clear idea of how much time you have to spend and then focusing your goals around that and focusing your marketing around that one goal that you have for yourself. And then you can start building from there. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose.